Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. I was at Walmart last night, and something crazy happened. I was driving to get some replacement Halloween lights for my balcony. It wasn't too late at night, but it wasn't exactly early either. The Walmart near me was still open for another hour, which was super convenient. Before I left, I decided to check one last time to make sure the lights really didn't work, as I was hesitant about going to Walmart so late. To give more context, the city I live in isn't the safest. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff over the years, but this might be the wildest. As I was driving down the dark road to Walmart, I was suddenly passed by a bunch of police cars and fire trucks speeding by. It seemed serious. When I finally arrived at Walmart, it was surrounded by almost a dozen police cars. People were leaving, and when I asked an employee what happened, he told me the whole story. A few minutes before I showed up, some crazy guy hotwired an excavator at a construction site down the road. He drove it through several utility poles and even into a storage unit, completely leveling it. Eventually, he made it to Walmart and started ramming the excavator into the automotive section. After it stalled, he got out, ran inside, and pulled a machete on a bunch of people. When the police arrived, he refused to be arrested, and it took 7 cops to subdue him. This all happened near the Halloween section in the front part of Walmart, close to the automotive section. It's crazy to think what could have happened if I hadn't tested my lights and showed up earlier. I'm a female and was 19 at the time of this story. One evening, around 7 p.m., I went shopping at Walmart. The store wasn't too busy, but there was a decent amount of other shoppers around. I only needed about 5 things, so I didn't plan on being there long. While I was in one of the grocery aisles, a man approached me and immediately started giving me compliments. It was clear that he was interested in me, but the problem was that he was much older than I was. I tried to be polite, but then he asked for my phone number. I told him no, and the whole interaction just felt really weird. Even if he had been closer to my age, the way he approached me was off-putting. After I politely declined, he showed some disappointment but eventually walked away. I was relieved and hoped I wouldn't see him again. I quickly went back to shopping, feeling a bit embarrassed by the awkward conversation, but thankfully, no one else was around to witness it. I grabbed the last few items I needed and headed up to the checkout lanes. I didn't see the man again and assumed that was the end of it. After checking out, I took my things and left the store. Once I got to my car, I started driving home. Everything felt normal. It took me about 10 minutes to get back home, most of the drive on the highway, with a couple of quieter roads, toward the end. As I was nearing home, I noticed a car pulling onto my street behind me. Since it was dark, I could only really see the car's headlights, so I assumed it was one of my neighbors. When I pulled into my parents' driveway, I was living with them at the time, the car behind me pulled in too. That was strange, because both of my parents were home, and I didn't recognize the car. I parked, and the car parked right behind me, blocking me in. Then the driver's door opened, and a man got out. That's when I realized it was the same guy from Walmart. I had no idea what he was doing there, or how he had followed me without me noticing. He walked up to my driver's door and started knocking on the window, asking me to open the door. I wanted to get away, but his car was parked too close for me to pull out. I grabbed my phone, thinking about calling the police, but instead, I called my dad since he was right inside the house. As I was calling my dad, the man kept knocking on my window and even tried to open the door. My dad told me he was coming outside, and within a minute, he was out the front door. As soon as the man saw him, he turned and ran back to his car, quickly driving away. After that, I went inside, and we called the police to report the incident. Although the guy was long gone by then, I still felt it was important to file a report. I had no idea he was following me when I left Walmart, and because it was dark, I didn't notice. It made me worry for a while, knowing he now knew where I lived. Luckily, I never saw him again. This is my story from when I went shopping at Walmart almost 2 years ago. For some background, I'm a female, and I went to a local Walmart, probably about 10 minutes from where I live, at around 10 p.m. When I got there, the store was pretty quiet, with it being later at night. I started my shopping on one side of the store. Maybe 10 minutes into being there, I was alone in an aisle when a man entered. I didn't really look at him, but he approached me and said, "Hi." I just remember that he had really short brownish hair, and he was slightly taller than me. I said hi back to him, and then he asked if I needed a ride. I told him no, and was kind of confused. The guy asked me again if I was sure I didn't need a ride. He came across as a little odd to me. I told him no, I was sure that I didn't need a ride. The man said he could give me one if I needed it. I started to walk away from him in the other direction, but he kind of followed me. He wasn't saying anything, but as I walked out of that aisle and into another one, he followed me. I continued to move farther away, and the man remained behind me. Eventually, I stopped, and the guy stopped as well. He then told me once again that he could give me a ride. By now, I was getting really frustrated. I turned to the man and told him that for the last time, I did not need or want a ride, and I asked him to please leave me alone. The guy said, all right, and then he actually walked away. After that, I resumed my shopping. Eventually, I made my way over to the grocery area and got several items. I was in that area for probably 15 minutes or so. During this time, I didn't see the guy. I went to the self-checkout and paid for everything. The next time I saw him was right after I left the checkout area and was making my way to the exit. As I started walking toward the doors, I noticed the guy walking towards them as well, but from the other side. I tried to avoid making eye contact with him, but I wanted to know where he was going and if he would try to talk to me again. I stopped where I was and just stood there with my bags in hand, waiting for him to leave the store first. The guy walked out of the doors, and I followed after a short pause. When I stepped outside, I looked around and didn't see him, so I started walking to my car. I was parked about halfway down the lot. As I was walking to my vehicle, I suddenly heard someone walking behind me, fast. When I was almost halfway to my car, I looked behind me, and of course, the guy was there. He was looking right at me and walking in my direction. Maybe his car was also parked near mine, but I had the feeling he was headed towards me. I started walking faster, just to be safe. I felt like I could make it to my car before he approached me, as I was far enough ahead of him, so I ignored him and kept walking. I arrived at my car, opened the back seat door, and began putting my shopping bags inside. As I was doing this, I heard the footsteps behind me turn into running. I looked back and saw the man sprinting toward me. I tossed the bags in the back, hurried to the front of my car, and got inside as fast as I could. I locked the doors just moments before the man reached me. He went straight for my driver's door and unsuccessfully tried opening it. Then he started knocking on the window. I didn't waste any time, I started driving away immediately. He kept knocking on the window until I was out of his reach. He even tried chasing my car on foot for a short time, but I got far enough away that he couldn't catch me. Finally, I was safe. Luckily, I was able to get out of there before the man had a chance to follow me in his car or anything. Since that experience, I haven't gone back to that Walmart. The man was sketchy from the very beginning. I can't imagine why he kept asking to give me a ride over and over again. I would recommend that anyone going to Walmart late at night be very aware of their surroundings. I got my first job working at Walmart in the summer of 2014. I was a young 16-year-old still in high school at the time. This story is about something that happened about a month into the job. I was a cashier, so I spent all my time working at the check lanes. Since I was a minor, I wasn't allowed to work past 10 p.m., but I often worked right up until 10. I noticed that after 7 p.m., the store would get quieter and quieter, and by 9 p.m., it would be almost dead. Back then, the store was open 24 hours, and I was really glad I didn't have to work that late. One time, I was working a shift until 10 p.m. I started at 4, and a few hours in, things started to quiet down from the busy early evening. I had just finished checking out a customer, and no one else was in my line. Then a man walked into the check lane. He was thin, average height, and only holding a Snapple, a bottled fruit drink. He held it up and said he wanted to return it. He said he bought the Snapple, tried it, and, quote, it tasted like crap. I told him he had to go to customer service to make a return. The man insisted, saying he wanted to return it right there. I pointed to customer service and told him again that he had to go there, and it wasn't that far away. Either he didn't understand, or he didn't want to, because he then told me how much he paid and asked if I could just give him the money back. I was sure he hadn't bought it at my check lane because I hadn't seen him before, and obviously, making a return wasn't that simple. Being a fairly new employee, I didn't want to go against policy. I remember the man took another sip of the drink, which was now almost halfway gone, and then finally walked away. I watched him head toward customer service, wondering if they would let him return it, given that he had opened it and was drinking it. Just then, another customer came into my lane, and I turned to help them. After that, a few more people got in line, and I was kept busy for the next few minutes. I sort of forgot about the man for a while, but about 10 minutes later, I saw him back in my line. I recognized him immediately, and when it was his turn, he told me they wouldn't let him return the drink. I apologized, but that wasn't good enough for him. He demanded I give him his money back. I wondered why he thought this was my problem. After I told him I wasn't going to give him any money, he really lost it. The man cursed at me and then held up the Snapple, which was still about half full. The lid was off, and he splashed it into my face. Everything that was left in the bottle hit me, getting into my eyes and hair. I was really shocked. He then slammed the bottle to the ground, cursed at me again, and stormed off. There were only a few people nearby, and they looked just as shocked as I was. After a moment, someone came over and asked if I was okay. I was fine, just a little embarrassed. My boss came over and told me I could wash up and take a 15-minute break. He also asked about the situation, and I gave him all the details. I went to wash my face and then went into the break room. When I came back out, I headed for my check lane, but on the way, I couldn't believe my eyes. Down at the end of the checkout area by the exit, several police officers were removing the same man from the store. I didn't even know he was still inside. He was yelling something as they slowly escorted him out. I had to ask what was going on, so I found one of my coworkers. I found out that the man had been yelling at another employee near the electronics department. I don't think it had anything to do with the Snapple. The man was asked to leave, and when he refused, the police were called. They arrived quickly, and the man didn't comply when they asked him to leave. It seemed like he just wanted trouble. I also found out that he had no receipt for the Snapple, which was why customer service wouldn't let him return it. That guy was by far the wildest customer I've ever seen. When the man got angry with me, I briefly considered just giving him the $2 or whatever the Snapple cost, but I didn't have any cash on me, and I couldn't take cash out of the register without getting in trouble. Plus, since he harassed another employee for a completely different reason, I don't think it would have solved anything. I worked at Walmart for a few more months before quitting and finding another job. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.